I'm Attorney Ramsey Bahrawy, and this is Your Money, Your Life. Are you becoming more forgetful? Do you have trouble recalling names or maintaining your train of thought? Do you refer to those events as a senior moment? Today our topic is the distinction between cognitive decline due to natural aging and Alzheimer's disease. Assisting me in this discussion is Marilyn Stasonis, registered nurse who for the past 30 years has served as an Alzheimer's specialist. In addition, she was instrumental in developing the first Alzheimer's Day program in Massachusetts. Thereafter, she worked with the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation in the development of Alzheimer's Day programs in the United States. And that's not all. Marilyn demonstrated her commitment to the care and treatment of people living with Alzheimer's disease by her membership in the Massachusetts Assisted Living Association, where she was involved in regulation review and policy development. Additionally, she's been a frequent invited speaker in many arenas on Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. Currently, Marilyn is the Director of Wellness and Memory Programs with the Northbridge Companies, a company providing the next generation of senior living. Marilyn, it's great to have you on the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Is it fair to say then, after the normal aging of the brain and then you have mild cognitive impairment, would early onset Alzheimer's be the next step, or is there something in between?
No, there isn't anything in between.
Okay.
There are other dementias, such as vascular dementia, frontal temporal lobe dementia, Lewy body dementia, but the majority, about 65% of dementias is caused from Alzheimer's disease. Initially, people who had the mild cognitive impairment who could function nicely in their home are now having difficulty completing other things.
So let's have some examples. Let's see, what are you talking about?
Before they were able to, like maybe it was someone who was a very good cook and always did a great job with recipes, is now when they're making things, you're tasting them and you're realizing there's something either missing or too much of in the recipe. That's a significant change for someone.
Okay.
If someone was an accountant who had always worked with numbers and now was missing paying bills, or was double paying, or was having difficulty doing figures, that would be a significant event. I like to have everything in order in my home. And if my home started to look disheveled, things changed.
Right.
It really depends upon the person, where the family would turn around and say, you know, this isn't quite the person.
Right.
They're not being the same person that I knew. They're also not remembering things that they should remember, maybe significant birthdays, maybe they, excuse me, maybe they needed to go out to a certain event, which was a big event, and they were like, oh no, I wasn't invited, but they were. There's usually a significant thing that occurs that makes people stand up and listen.
Right.
Because what happens as people's memory changes and it becomes a little worse, they'll try to cover up. You know, people feel like they're losing their mind. They just feel that, you know, I should be able to control this, so they work harder at it. They write more notes, but then they lose the notes.
Right.
Or they write things down and then they can't find which one goes with what day. So we're talking significant changes that would make you say, oh, I think there's something wrong here.
Let me present you with a scenario. What if you have someone who always put their keys in one particular place? You know, let's say the hook by the door, right? Always put their keys there. And one particular day, this person walks in the house, can be a he or a she, it doesn't matter, goes to the refrigerator and puts the keys in the freezer.
You might be concerned. Yes, they don't belong there.
Yeah, well, no, keys don't belong in the freezer,
don't.
but
if they
is that somebody who's absent-minded, or is that somebody who's maybe suffering from an illness?
The thing is, it can be absent-mindedness.
Yeah.
You know, I put my keys in the same place all the time, but there are times when we will, you know, you'll walk in the house and maybe you have bundles or whatever, so you take the keys with you. So then you may go back to your usual place and you'll say, my keys aren't here.
Right.
The important piece here, though, is that what do you do to find your keys? You retrace your steps.
Yes, exactly. Retrace.
Is that you think about, okay, what room was I in? You know, where did I put things down? What did I have in my hands? Why didn't I? The person who has a memory loss that is really starting to live in the moment, they're not able to do that. They're not able to then retrace their steps. They're going to walk everywhere, not knowing where to go, and think, where are my keys, where are my keys? And sometimes they get the keys and they'll say, well, why was I looking for them and what do I do with them?
Can someone who's in the early stages of dementia or even further along, can they engage in abstract thinking? Can they do that?
No. They frequently, you will see that they're unable to discuss any current events. They're not able to retain that information at all. They may sit with the newspaper and then you'll ask them what they read and they'll be very generic and say things like, oh, nothing, there's nothing new. It's all the same thing all the time. You know, well, and you'll ask them, did you read that article about the airplane crash? No, I didn't. I didn't get to it yet. They become very, very vague because they know they're losing their memory early on. So they do try to cover it up. So there's a lot of those things happening, and it really does put up red flags to families that, you know, this is not the person, because you see the personality changes along with the memory. Because if this is something that's not consistent or the same of what the personality was, then you're going to sit there and say, you know, there's something going on here.
What kind of personality changes does one see in somebody who's living with Alzheimer's?
More irritability initially, more irritable, somewhat more paranoid. You never told me that. Where did you put my things? Those types of things. Blaming other people. If you know somebody says to you, you know, well, you were the one who had the appointment book. No, I didn't. I gave it to you. And then a little more argumentative. And some of that argumentativeness is real fear. They really do believe that they don't have it, and if they did, then they're really concerned because they have lost their memory.
Okay, all right. So you see personality changes.
Yes. Change in your intellect, thinking. They're not thinking the same way, like what I talked about the checkbook. They're able to think logically. They also may have difficulty with communication. It goes beyond just word finding. They may insert inappropriate words, or they may have difficulty even completing sentences correctly, and then they dismiss you. They may have perceptual issues. You know, when we walk into a room, you know where to sit in the middle of a chair. Perception is our ability to determine where that framework is. They have difficulty with that. You know, and not everyone has all of these changes all at once, and the disease is individual depending on how it progresses with people, but memory is the hallmark.
Just like the rest of our bodies, as we age, our brains change. Although we all notice some occasional age-related slow thinking and memory loss, serious memory loss, confusion, language difficulties, and other major changes are not a normal part of aging. As regards Alzheimer's disease, it is not a normal result of aging. Rather, it is a disease that gradually and painfully destroys a person's memory, ability to learn, and carry out daily activities. And don't forget the importance of accurate Alzheimer's testing, as it can rule out Alzheimer's disease and thereby identify and treat another condition that presents with similar symptoms to Alzheimer's disease. When the time comes for help, turn to a competent and compassionate physician who understands the effective treatments available to provide the best medical care. Also consider an assisted living community such as Stonebridge, Burlington, for the right care at the right time. In closing, thanks to my guest, Marilyn. Thank you for being on the program.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure.
And as always, thank you to you, our viewers, for watching Your Money, Your Life. My name is Attorney Ramsey Bahrawy, Building Your Trust.